Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and it's time for the most bookmarked and clipped episode of the week. It's why Ole Miss is going to win against Mississippi State. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, and I'm likely the only person that you're going to hear from today that has had an office in the Manning Center at Ole Miss and worked in the national media for Yahoo Sports. Thank you for joining us. Today on the show, we talk about all we learned this week, and I'll let you know why Ole Miss will have at least the 5 best players on the field when they are on offense. Everydayers know how I look at football games and simply don't think that throw out the records is real and it's only a ploy to help the underdog. Ole Miss must avoid that trap tonight. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thank you very much for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers that make the show what it is. And if you're out traveling for Thanksgiving today, please be safe. And if you're going to the game tonight, please be safe there as well again. Anyway, I'm Stephen Willis. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We're going to do a couple of things, honestly, but we're going to talk about why Ole Miss wins the game tonight. And these are the 3 topics that we're going to go over tonight. Ole Miss has the 5 best offensive players in this game. Number 2, Ole Miss wide receivers versus Mississippi State secondary. And 3, there's a chance for Ole Miss to get 11 wins this season. These are the 3 major things that Ole Miss is going to be pressing against Mississippi State. And let's talk about the offense versus offense situation. It's one of those things that if you get into a shootout, which Ole Miss has a propensity to do, Ole Miss has the advantage in most games that they play. That's one of the reasons Lane Kiffin feels so confident and comfortable in an actual shootout. He might not like it. It might affect his nerves and things like that, but he's probably pretty confident that in a shootout, his team can prevail because offensively, they're generally the best unit on the field. Only a couple of times have they not been, but they've generally been the best unit on the field throughout this season. Well, this is going to be no different tonight. And this is including when they have Tre Harris and Tulu Griffin, and even if Woody Marks play and Will Rogers and those guys playing offense from the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Not one of those players would start for the other team. Now, they might have want to, they might have a desire to, and all of that stuff, but not one of those players would start on the other side of the field. Whenever you look at Ole Miss, you have Jaxson Dart, who statistically, according to Pro Football Focus, is a top 10 quarterback nationally. According to draft boards, he's down around 2025, and it looks like he's probably going to come back, whether or not Lane jumped the gun or not. Quinshon Judkins, unequivocally a better running back than Woody Marks. Woody Marks is a good player. He's a real good player. All SEC teams have good players, but he's not as good as Quinshon. He's probably on the level of Ulysses Bentley. I mean, that's what Woody Marks is. At wide receiver, Tulu Griffin and Tre Harris, they're pretty good. I would not take one of them over Tre Harris. I would not take one of them over Jordan Watkins. Heck, I wouldn't take one of them over Dayton Wade. And at tight end, it's just a clear wash, and maybe potentially the offensive line's better as well. Offensively, Ole Miss has a clear advantage in this football game. And this isn't a shot at anybody. It's just the truth, which means if this game gets into a scoring match, Ole Miss has an advantage over Mississippi State's offense. Now, the key is going to be, like I said, Ole Miss needs to pack their defense this game because I think Ole Miss has a better defense than Mississippi State, no matter what statistics say and all of that stuff. The Georgia game skews that a little bit, but Ole Miss has held 5 opponents out of 11 under 300 total yards this year. Every time that Ole Miss has faced a mid to bad offense this season, they've looked really, really good and in some cases actually won the football game. So we looked at keys during the week. and we looked at what to watch for, and we looked at all these different things that Ole Miss had the advantage in. And this is a situation where if Ole Miss loses this game, there is not an excuse. It's not one of those, oh, anything can happen type thing. If Ole Miss loses this game, Ole Miss takes the blame for losing this game, and it is going to be precipitous. I am going to break out the flamethrower on the post-game show. Get ready for that. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I mentioned yesterday my prediction that I had for this game was 38-14 Ole Miss winning. Jake Wimberly, a Mississippi State person, I brought him on to do the Know Your Enemy segment. He predicted 38-17. Mississippi State fans are not fired up about this game. They're conceding it, for lack of a better way of putting it. They're conceding the fact that they do not need to put so much emotional capital in this game. And this has led to a unique thing. Attendance has not been very good for the last few weeks in Starkville. Everybody knows that. It's been down for Southern Miss. It's been down everywhere. Nobody wants to go see him play because, honestly, it hasn't been a very entertaining product. But all of a sudden, the Egg Bowl tickets is going sky high. And they're down to nearly selling out a game that they haven't done in 2 or 3 months, if they've sold out any this season. And that I'll let you know about a phone call that I got yesterday, where I was told that people are going on to the Mississippi State site, Ole Miss fans, and buying tickets. They're buying on the social media. And, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I don't know that it's going to be a takeover in Starkville. I don't know that. I think Ole Miss should. I think this is the year to go. But I don't know if it's going to happen. This could all very well be a coincidence. And I am fully prepared to admit that. But right now, I'm getting DMs and text messages. Our Discord server is filled with people saying they're going to this game. And if you look at this, how is it going to look tonight? All these people are saying on the Ole Miss side that they're going. They're letting me know. They're letting me know where they stand. Mississippi State people are saying, hey, we've moved on to basketball. And they're clear about it. Every interview I've done with a person associated with Mississippi State is a down confidence thing. So common sense lets you know, okay? We'll talk about this just for a second. Ole Miss fans do not normally go to this game. And if tickets remain goes up, it is because the home team is buying them. But if every single person you talk to is down on going, that would not be the case. They would not set themselves up and pay money and be in the stadium to want to look at the other side winning the game, which they obviously think that is the case. So who is buying these tickets? Going towards a sellout with everything that's going on, who is buying these tickets? And that leads me to the phone call that I got yesterday talking about essentially a phone tree of Ole Miss people that were going to the Mississippi State site and buying tickets to the game. SeatGeek or Game Time or all those ticketing apps, that their ticketing prices are going up, not down. That doesn't match the confidence level of this game. Like I said, I have no idea how this is going to look tonight. And because it's chilly, you're probably not going to be able to tell. But the evidence is Ole Miss people are buying these tickets. Whether it actually is the case, I do not know. I do not know if it's going to be the normal 5,000 people that go down to Starkville. I do not know if it's going to be 10,000, 7,000, 15,000. I do not know the number. I do think that this game is going to be a larger turnout than we usually see in an Egg Bowl. This could be the trend breaker in people not going to Starkville, because honestly, I think some people agree with me that this game has a chance to be the ultimate revenge for 2016 and 2017. and winning that game and everything going on. It should be fairly interesting indeed. It's just weird. Like I said, I'm not one to say I think Ole Miss should take it over. I'm not claiming that they are, but the evidence points to the fact that something weird is happening. I just genuinely do not think that Mississippi State fans are voluntarily wanting to buy these tickets to go in there for what might happen and what likely will happen. Because that anybody that has lost this game, that is an incredibly long walk back to your car. It doesn't matter if it's 100 yards. That is a long 100 yards. And this game, unlike most of them, had the ability to kind of eat at you. So if you literally are sure you're dead set that you're going to lose the game, you're probably not going to this football game. And we see it on both sides. Ole Miss fans and State fans do this as well. So I do want to let you know that today's podcast, is brought to you by, well, actually, there's no reader this time. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. We're just getting started. We tell you the biggest mismatch of the day. We're just, like I said, getting started. And Jaxson Dart may go off tonight. We talk about that next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. All right. So we are back. Locked On has basically created its first national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, so we need to talk about the biggest mismatch on the field. And as I talked to Mississippi State people throughout the week, this was the area of the football game that they are genuinely concerned with, and that is their DBs against Ole Miss's wide receivers, which is kind of funny because in the preseason, everybody remember that Bo Bounds had the amazing take that this is the first year in like 15 years that Mississippi State had better wide receivers than Ole Miss. Ole Miss has like 3 receivers over 700 yards at this moment. So this matchup, Ole Miss's wide receivers versus State's DBs, that becomes the situation. Now, everybody's going to talk about the offensive line, and that's fine. That's going to be an important part, and that is going to be important for Mississippi State to protect those DBs, because if Jaxson Dart has time to throw the football, he's probably going to be able to work a little bit in this football game. I think that they're going to try and bracket Tre Harris, and they're going to try to keep him from doing what he did against Texas A&M. I don't know if they can. I'm saying they're going to try to do it. So mixing that with mass pressure, and all of a sudden they're going to make Dayton Wade, Caden Prescorn, and Jordan Watkins win the game through hot reads, quick stuff like that, and stopping the run game. I think that is Mississippi State's plan defensively. But if Jaxson Dart has time to throw the football, Tre Harris is going to be able to cook a little bit. He's the best wide receiver Ole Miss has, one of the best players on the field. Probably a second-round draft pick, and I say that intentionally because of where A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf and Elijah Moore and those guys went. Jonathan Mingo. So we'll see exactly how this goes in this game. But Mississippi State throughout the season, I'll put it like this. Against Western Michigan, who was playing Mississippi State with a third-string quarterback, they gave up somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% completion percentage to Western Michigan that day. Western Michigan's wide receiver got to eat. The quarterback had basically a day he will remember for the rest of his days. And Mississippi State won a close game against a Mid-America Conference team. Jaden Daniels was like 32 of 35 in his game. Jalen Milroe had a day. Every quarterback that has gone against Mississippi State secondary has had a day. So what does that tell you? Well, first of all, you can't really just say that it's on the quarterback, but it tells you the pass rush has not necessarily been where it normally is at Mississippi State. Pass rush just genuinely isn't there. And the rumors at the end of the week is that Jaden Williams is going to play. Like I said, whenever we hear about a player being hurt, he usually means he's not going to play. When we don't hear about it, it usually means he is going to play. We heard about Jaden Williams, but this being the last game of the season and the regular season, and Ole Miss going for history, we'll talk about that in the third segment. I expect Jaden Williams might play a little bit, and that's a big key for this offensive line. I've heard rumors. Like I said, I don't know if they're true, but I people have talked about in the Louisiana Monroe game, they spent a half to three-quarter of a practice on Louisiana Monroe, and that would track a little bit, honestly. If you looked at the way they came out and they were kind of unprepared and reacting to Louisiana Monroe was doing, and that type of stuff in the second half when they just had 10 minutes to sit down to what Louisiana Monroe was doing to them, you look at what happened in the third quarter. But the rest of the time, supposedly, according to rumor has it, they were on Mississippi State. And Lane Kiffin actually confirmed the fact that they did spend last week getting a head start on Mississippi State. Now, how much time, I do not know. But if that is the case, and if you've heard Jaxson Dart, heck, if you've heard Lane Kiffin, who has been Mr. Non-Rivalry this whole time that he has been the head coach, everybody's ears are perked up about this game. And I think it's interesting, okay? Everybody talks about exactly what this game meant to Lane Kiffin. That's been the hot take since Lane has been here. It's like, he's going to turn the temperature down. He doesn't care about this game, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's heard that. Well, the thing about it is, if you hear him this year, there's a tonal change between the players, the importance in the program, the whole 9 yards. And the reason is this, and this isn't even a theory. This is the reason for that. You have to lose this game before it gets important to you. You have to deal with what's going on for this game to mean something a little bit more. It's just another football game until you lose this football game. And looking at the film and everything that's gone on and the way it's worked and how they've been met on the recruiting trail for the last year, they started to emphasize it a little more. Now, I'm not saying that Ole Miss needs to do what Dan Mullen did in 2009. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to compartmentalize this in a way that it is an important game, because two things are true, okay? For Ole Miss to be exactly what Ole Miss wants to be, they have to win the state game every single year. 2, the Egg Bowl is an incredibly important rivalry, but you can't make it about Mississippi State. You need to win that game, and you need to put all of the importance into that game that you can. But for you to get where you want to be, the result of that game needs to be predetermined. And this year is an important year. I did a video a couple of weeks back about this is the year where Ole Miss can bury Mississippi State. These opportunities do not come around very often. And when they do, you need to take them. Johnny Vaught was able to do it for a little bit. Billy Brewer was able to do it for a little bit. They don't come around very much. But whenever it happens, you need to take them, because this is going to allow you to accomplish that first goal that we were talking about. Like I said, this game can't be about the result against Mississippi State. But this game is super important. This game is super important, we need to make it to where that result necessarily is kind of predetermined. You need to do what Alabama's done to Auburn. You need to do what Georgia has done to Georgia Tech. You need to do what Tennessee has done to Vanderbilt. That needs to be the direction of this football game. And we'll see tonight how it goes. This is a golden opportunity for the Ole Miss Rebels. There's still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 2 things working against Mississippi State tonight, and they are big things. We'll tell you what those are in a moment. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. And shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to be the first ever national sports stream channel subscriber. Be part of history. You know, there's two things that in this game is working against Mississippi State and working for Ole Miss. And normally these two type things don't exist in this football game. So we're not exactly 100% sure how Ole Miss is going to come out, but we're going to make assumptions because of that. But the two things that Ole Miss have going for them this week is the fact that they have 11 wins still on the table, which would be a historic season, the greatest win total in a season in Ole Miss football history. If they can win 11, it would be completely unlike anything anybody has done before, except Johnny Vaught in the, I'm going to say non-modern times because football's changed so much, but they played like 9 regular season games and then a bowl game, or the bowl game didn't count, but they could not win 11 games. Winning 11 games is on the table for Ole Miss football. And this is what you need to know. This staff, Lane Kiffin, one of his main mantras that he gives people, especially recruiting to Ole Miss, is do something that has never been done. I'm sure you've heard that. If you watch the season, if you read a recruiting interviews, he's consistently said, do something that's never been done. You can go and do it there. You can go play wide receiver at Alabama. You can go win a national championship at Alabama. But how cool would it be if you did it here? That has been his mantra. And this is on the table for Ole Miss. 11 wins is on the table for Ole Miss. Win the game tonight, go down to Orlando, win the Citrus Bowl or the New Year's Six Bowl, beat Texas or Penn State or whoever that is. Win those 2 games, win 11 games. Never been done at Ole Miss football. And that is a recruiting pitch. Recruiting's going to get a little bit better because of this. This is the thing that everybody needs to realize, okay? There's a lot of people that just want to skip steps. Okay, we've made it. We're good. We need to all of a sudden start recruiting like a top 5 program. Doesn't work that way. Look at an example of what Clemson did before they broke through. That is my example to everybody. Look at what Clemson did. What Dabo Swinney was able to do a couple of years at Clemson, which required them going to access bowls and stuff like that. Eventually, they knocked on the door. And eventually opportunity opened and they went through it. And once they got through it, they won a couple of national championships and they had the best 5-year run that Clemson is probably ever going to have. Their glory days have happened. Their glory days are over. Ole Miss is in the early stage, the ascendancy of that. Because Ole Miss and Clemson's not that different of a program. It's not the wealthiest program. It's not the most talent-rich state. Still a talent-rich state, but it's not like they're sitting in Florida. They're in there going against teams that have a little bit more money in Florida State, even though Clemson's a big dog in the ACC. But North Carolina has more money. Duke has more money. There's several programs in the ACC that Clemson has to kind of fight with and punch above their weight. And they did that. And they are doing that. And now that they're kind of regressing to the mean, everybody's like, what's wrong with Clemson? It's like, no, they did it. They did what they needed to do. Give them a break. Give them a beat. And Ole Miss is on that ascendancy. People forget when Dabo Swinney was building Clemson up, they got to go to an Orange Bowl and got beat 77-7 by West Virginia and Dana Holgorsen. Geno Smith just went off that night. It takes time. It's a process. So Ole Miss recruiting a little bit better is a really big deal. You move up to top 25 classes, you move up to top 15 classes, then all of a sudden you're getting these top 10 classes, and your transfer portal strategy can change a little bit. I think it still needs to happen because it is the great equalizer right now in college football. But that is on the table, that 11-win season. This is why that is really important. And this is also why Lane Kiffin is pretty jacked up indeed. The other thing working against Mississippi State tonight, Ole Miss needs style points. It's a situation that if Ole Miss can go, if they can really put together a game plan and can kind of just put their foot on Mississippi State's throat, they're going to do it. Because they're in a beauty contest with Missouri, even though they have a better resume, but they need to do all they can to separate themselves from a team that there is no head-to-head with. Missouri, Penn State, those teams, Ole Miss has to do something to separate themselves. And being the only college football game on Thanksgiving night is going to be a pretty big step. You can make some noise in that game. And that is working against Mississippi State as well. I do think this is going to be the type of a game where Ole Miss kind of jumps out on Mississippi State and the interim coach thing happens to where, you go into a game hoping you can win. And then when something goes wrong, that hope goes away, your level drops down and you end up losing the game. My prediction for the game is Ole Miss 38, Mississippi State 14. Clip it, bookmark it, do what you need to do on that one. But it's the game that everything and everybody is pointing one way. It's at the point that if Mississippi State won this game, it would probably be the biggest upset in at least the last 40 years in this rivalry. You're dealing with a top 12 team playing against a team that with an interim coach that is just hoping upon hope that they can get a win to go to the Birmingham Bowl. 5-7 is probably going to end the streak this year because James Madison and Jacksonville State get to go to a bowl game this year. If not enough teams make it, they're first in line. It's not the APR thing as before. So you probably need 3 or 4 or 5 bowl games that need 5 and 7 teams before you even get to Mississippi State. So that's not an option. Likely that's not an option. Weird stuff can happen, of course. But we'll see exactly what happens. I'm looking forward to what's going on. And I'm always look forward to this game every year. So as we tune in tonight, let's see what it looks like. Let's see how many Ole Miss fans are there. Let's see how Ole Miss comes out and plays clean, or if they play clean. Let's see if any weird stuff happens. Let's see if Ole Miss falls into that trap of throw out the records this game. Let's see if Ole Miss falls into that. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. Every day or tomorrow evening, we'll be talking to Tom Vanderford for some additional reaction to tonight's postgame show, and then we'll take the weekend off. I'm sure everybody can understand that. For your second listen today, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today and YouTube and subscribe to the first national sports 24/7 stream channel. For you, those of you on YouTube, we will send you there right now. Enjoy this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. And of course, hotty toddy.